Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn. I run the services at MedComms So information, resources, activities, and so on for people who work in and around medical communications, medical education, medical publishing, and associated businesses across the globe. We do a lot of these webinars, one sort or another, and generate quite a lot of video content. You'll find a lot of content over at NetworkPharma TV. It's worth having a look at. There's more than 500 videos now on all manner of topics related to MedComms. Importantly, we do quite a lot of work telling people about MedComms and the associated businesses, with people who want to come and join us as a medical writer, account manager, editor, whatever. You'll specifically find lots of information at firstmedcommsjob.com. And today we've got a webinar with the guys from Inizio Medical, and we're specifically talking about allegro.WRITE. Is that right? So this is the program, the training program for basically people who want to become a medical writer. So we're going to talk through that program. Thank you to Nikki and Katie for joining us. Talk through the program, answer some questions from the audience. So no further ado, over to Katie to kick us off.
Thanks very much, Peter. First of all, thank you for inviting us to come along and do the webinar. We're going to talk to you about Inizio Medical, about the Allegro Rights program, and as Peter said, there'll be time for some questions afterwards. So I'm just going to share my slides with you all. Can you see those, Peter? Perfect. Okay. So. Okay, so Katie and I are from the Allegro team at Inizio Medical. So just a bit about us before we kick off on Inizio Medical. So I'm Nicola Griffin. I'm the program director for Allegro. So I began my career in pharma. I worked at AstraZeneca for 13 years and moved into MedComms. I worked on the writing side of the business at Inizio Medical and joined the Allegro team about 3.5 years ago. Katie, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Katie Caine and I'm the Recruitment Business Partner for the Allegro team. So I started out my journey in MedComms in Ashfield MedComms before we became Inizio Medical, and I partner mostly with the Allegro team, bringing in entry-level hires.
Perfect. Right. So Inizio Medical. So who are we essentially? So Inizio Medical are a group of teams, agencies who work across the life cycle of a drug. So our remit really is to support our clients, pharma clients, healthcare professionals in all aspects of MedComms. So we do medical writing, publication planning, we do strategic planning, lots of brand and creative development. We do meetings and congresses, advisory boards, medical education events and pieces. What you'd normally expect essentially from a MedComms company, we cover it all up. And we do this through our 3 MedComms agencies. So Inizio Medical is made up of 3 global MedComms companies, Apothecom, Ashfield MedComms, and Nucleus Global. Alongside those 3 teams, we have 2 specialised services, Medistrava and Medivoke. Our remit within Allegro is to find medical writers for the 3 global MedComms communication companies, Apothecom, Ashfield, and Nucleus Global. So Inizio Medical, in terms of size, where we're based, over 2,000 staff, about 300 clients across all the agencies. We operate out of 29 offices across 13 countries. We have lots of home workers as well. You can see here on the slide in green, there's various countries that we operate out of. So it's truly a global company. It's huge. We have people on the writing side with BScs, MScs, PhDs. So you don't have to have a PhD to be a writer with us. You can come in with a BSc. In terms of who we work with, so MedComms companies essentially provide consultancy writing services to the pharma industry. So across Inizio Medical, we work with the top big 20 pharma. We work with small biotech companies and pretty much everything in between. So all of our agencies tend to do similar types of work, publications, med affairs, commercial types of work, but we just work with different clients in different locations, different size teams, depending on the client that we're working with. As you might expect, that number of teams and clients, we deliver an awful lot across a year. What I want to kind of show from this slide really is the variety of what we work on. So there's your standard publications work, so abstracts, posters, manuscripts. There's lots of meeting-based work, so congresses, content for booths at congresses, advisory boards, lots of slide presentations. We do lots of electronic and digital projects. We do writing for patients, lay audiences, all sorts of stuff. So what we try and do through our Allegro Write programme is give you the opportunity across the year to learn as many of these different things as possible, to give you a real rounded view of what a medical writer might work on. Okay, over to Katie.
Thanks, Nikki. So yeah, I'll just introduce Allegro, the model and the team. And Allegro was our resource model for hiring, training and developing entry-level writers and client services people into the business. And the Allegro Write programme was actually established in 2017. And at the time, it was a very new way of bringing people into the business. But over that 5-year period, we've continually changed and developed and adjusted what we're working with. And the team that we have here on this slide is our dedicated team focused on delivering the training across the business. So Neil was the founder of the Allegro programme. He heads up the team. Got Nikki here who heads up the Allegro Write programme. Anna who heads up the Allegro Drive programme, which is the client services programme. And they're all supported by the wider team who assist with the programme development, training, managing and looking at new hires in the business. And as a team, we're really lucky in the sense that we're spread out across all of our UK offices. So it really helps when we're delivering in-person training, helping to come up with social activities for the guys in those offices. And we'll regularly get together and join teams for that in-person training.
So Allegro, as Katie mentioned, it was set up about 5 years ago. The rationale behind Allegro was to provide a resourcing and training development tool for the company. So our remit really is to bring in all the entry-level hires across those 3 agencies, Apothecom, Ashfield MedComms and Nucleus Global, and provide a consistent way of training people, give people a really consistent opportunity across the business in terms of how they might learn the role of being a medical writer and the opportunities to experience different types of work. So we have the 3 programs that we kind of alluded to already, but just to give you some more information. So Allegro Rights is the entry-level medical writer training program, and that's what we're here to talk to you about today, really. So the idea here is that we bring in associate medical writers and over the course of 12 months, train you and develop you so you can become a medical writer at the end of that 12-month period. So the idea is you get promoted to medical writer after 12 months. Originally, Allegro Write was established in the UK, and more recently, the programme has spread globally, and it's now available in South Africa and Greece as well. I'm going to talk to you more specifically about the UK programme today. Allegro Drive is our entry-level client services training programme, and this is built on the heritage of the Nucleus Academy Group, which you may have come across in the past. The Nucleus Academy Group built the Academy model about 5 years ago, very well established, very successful model, and since we've collaborated together within Inizio Medical, Allegro Drive has come about from that, and that's now the client services training programme, and that's based in the UK. Allegro Excel is a programme for experienced MedComms professionals, so people who might have got to senior medical writer or a senior level on the client services side and wish to take their career to the next level. So the idea of Allegro Excel is that once you've established yourself and you kind of found your niche within MedComms environment, we can help you tailor your training to your strengths and take you to the next level. Allegro Excel at the moment is being looked at in terms of how we can roll it out more widely across the Inizio Medical Group. This programme comes originally from the Ashfield MedComms company. So we're looking at Allegro Excel at the minute to see how we can tailor it so it's relevant for client services and medical and scientific staff across all 3 of our global communications agencies. So in terms of a bit more about Allegro, so as Katie mentioned, we were established over 5 years ago, and over the course of that 5 years, more than 250 people have joined the company through Allegro. We have a retention rate of around about 80%, which is fantastic to see. And what we found over the years is that people who have joined us through Allegro as associate medical writers are now scientific directors in the company and are actually helping to train the next cohort of AMW. So it's really nice, that full circle that we're getting to see. We have won a couple of awards over the course of the 5 years. And the key thing for me is that we're not just an entry-level program. So you don't just come in, learn how to be a medical writer and off you go. We're really invested in trying to make sure that we kind of keep up to date with how you're getting on and help you develop your career as you progress up into more senior roles, such as through Allegro Excel. And the community aspect as well. So we have what we refer to as our Allegro alumni. So these are people that have been through Allegro and that kind of help to mentor and train the next ones that come through. So as I mentioned before, the whole ethos of Allegro is to try and help you build a career. It's not just a training program. We're trying to find out what your strengths are. It makes sense. You're going to do well in areas that you enjoy working in. So let's understand what you enjoy, where your strengths are, and try and put you in an environment, a situation where you can work to the best of your ability. The awards that we've won, I guess the most notable one is the Princess Royal Training Award in 2021, although we had to wait 12 months to get the award because of COVID, but it was a nice day out meeting Princess Anne. So yeah, we're trying to build a community essentially, and trying to build careers of people that actually make sense for them. So we have different pathways that people can go down in their career through the Excel program. In terms of culture and the environment where we like to work, like all companies, we have a number of key ambitions to try and make sure we're being as responsible as possible as a company. So things like the environment, sustainability, DEI, so our offices are single-use plastic-free offices. We run regular community action days where we give the opportunity to go out into your local community and try and make a difference. Sustainability pledges. We have teams at all levels across DEI to try and make sure that we're making sure people understand the importance of these things. And as you can see from some of the pictures here, we like to have a bit of fun where we can. We work globally like most MedComms companies, so it's really important that we run both virtual and in-person events to try and make sure that you feel like you're part of the team, you're getting to know people. You know, when I joined MedComms back in the day, you were sat with your team in the office. You'd have MSS guys together, client services together, but you could go for a drink after work. Nowadays, it's very different. So we try and put a lot of emphasis on making sure that within offices, but also virtually, we're doing things to make sure people actually get the opportunity to connect and get to know each other. Right, so I'm going to go into a bit more in detail now about Allegro Rights, the actual program itself. So as you can imagine, the program focuses on trying to develop writing skills, project management skills, helping you work effectively in a team. We like to spend a lot of time getting you to network across the business and basically help you build confidence in your ability in being a medical writer. So in the UK, we are spread across 4 offices. So if you were to join Allegro Rights, you can work out of any of these 4 offices. Or you can work from home if you need to. But yeah, so Glasgow, Manchester, Macclesfield and London. As I alluded to earlier, it's a 12-month program. So we recruit you into the role. You spend 6 weeks with us full-time in the Allegro group doing what we call core skills training. So in that 6 weeks, we try and equip you with the key skills that you need so that you can then go out into the business, join one of our teams on rotation and feel you've got the confidence to have a go at doing things in that team. So after the 6 weeks of core skills training, you join a team on rotation A for 5 months. Rotation A is all about just getting you into your groove, help you understand how we operate, what the processes are, helping you get to meet clients, meet the teams, and just find your feet and start to work on some real life client deliverables. After the 5-month period on rotation A, you go on to rotation B. Rotation B is with a different team, different client, different size of team. And the idea here is to try and really consolidate your learning, help you strengthen your skill set. So that by the end of rotation B, you're ready for promotion to medical writer. So at 12 months, ideally, you're going to gain promotion to medical writer, and at that point, you're placed into one of our teams in the business as a medical writer. Okay, so what do we actually cover off in that core skills setting? So core skills training is, we always say it's busy, it's very busy, it's quite full on. In that 6 weeks, we really do try and make sure we cover off as many things as possible. So I've kind of categorized them into 5 buckets here. We give you an overview of the business, we do a lot of networking, we do place a real emphasis on storytelling. So story is at the heart of everything we do in MedComms, in my opinion. We have to communicate effectively with people, so you have to find the hook, you have to find the story, what's the point of this communication. So we do a lot around storytelling and how to think innovatively, how to challenge the status quo, how to come up with new ideas. And we do the standard things that you'd expect, such as teaching you grammar, punctuation, how to write properly. We do publications and med affairs. That's things like understanding a clinical trial and understanding why publication planning is so important, how to write an abstract, how to write a poster, how to write a manuscript, how to write for the lay audience, so that's patients and perhaps their families or carers. In terms of med affairs work, we do lots of communication planning, we do lots of meetings, congresses, events. So we talk to you about what's a symposium, what's an advisory board, how would we run meetings like that. We work on how to write for digital or how to communicate in an omni-channel way. So, for example, you might have one set of data from a clinical trial, and you might need to communicate that one set of data to healthcare professionals, pharmacists, GPs, affiliates, and carers. So how do you communicate those data to those different audiences in a different way, in a way that's going to make sense to them? So we do lots of work around thinking about the actual audience you're communicating to and how you're going to connect with them. We do finance and business processes training. So we talk about the role of client services, and we all work together as one team. Finance training. So in terms of when we're working with pharma companies, how do we go about building a scope of work so we know what we've been asked to do by the pharma company? Processes training and things that I've kind of grouped as complementary, but things that are really vital here. So how to use platforms like PowerPoint effectively, and how we pitch stats, everyone's favourite subject, but it helps to have that real grounding of basic stats knowledge. How do we data check, presentation skills? There's a whole host of things that we cover off, and that's all within that first 6 weeks. So it's quite busy, but we do it in a way where it's very interactive. So what you might find is that when we deliver the core skills training, we do a training session, which might be face-to-face or it might be virtually. So what happens is the trainers will travel across all the offices during that 6-week period. So we're constantly moving across offices to deliver face-to-face training as well as give some of the training virtually. So you'll have an interactive session, either face-to-face or virtually. Perhaps it's on how to write an abstract. Then you'll go away and actually try and build an abstract yourself, individually. And then we get together again as a group and we look at those abstracts and think about how do we build the best abstract possible. So let's look at the title together. What does a title need to contain? What does the background need to contain? So you're kind of learning from the trainers, but also learning from each other. And it's a discussion around what everyone thinks. A lot of what we do in MedComms isn't right or wrong, it's subjectivity. So it's really important that people understand that quite often it's just based on someone's experience or a client preferences or a congress requirements. That's where we change things. So there's lots of talk about that. And then you have individual one-to-one feedback and time to chat with a trainer or a mentor. So you can ask those specific questions around things that you don't really understand. In terms of what we're looking for from a medical writer, some of the key things really, so we kind of expect you over time to develop an in-depth understanding of a therapy area. So on rotation A, you might work on a respiratory account, and on rotation B, you might work on oncology or HIV. And over the course of time, you'll build that therapy area knowledge. I think it's important to say though that as medical writers, we're not experts in therapy area, we're experts in medical writing, in MedComms. As you get more senior, you start to build more of a in-depth knowledge of a therapy area if you stay on that account for a period of time. but you're an expert in medical communications, not necessarily the therapy area, especially at the start of your career. We'd expect you to be able to write high quality work. So over the course of the 12 months, you're constantly learning how to sort of hone your craft and be a really effective medical writer. We'd expect you to partner with clients quite early on. So you'd be talking to clients during rotation A with the support, obviously, of your team and line manager. You might get to go on site, might deliver some meetings virtually. We'd expect you to partner with different stakeholders, be an expert really in that high quality and accuracy, and also look at project management as well. I'm not going to read these out, but like Peter said, the slides will get shared, but just to kind of a few snippets on what associate medical writers that have been through the programme are focused on in the past. One of the key things here is if you're really passionate about science, passionate about healthcare, and you're quite creative, medical writing is a fantastic role to get into. As you can see on the one at the bottom here, the programme's fast track and it is full on, but you're not working alone. And I think that's the thing that kind of helps people, that you're part of a team. There's no kind of hierarchy. We're all in one big group together trying to help you get to where you need to get to. And it's fun, it's energetic. We do deliver things at quite a fast pace, but it's very engaging and it's very interactive. Right, Katie, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Nikki. So I'll just talk through the recruitment process and what that looks like. But it's worth mentioning that the way that we recruit in the UK is slightly different to how we recruit in different geographies. So in the UK, recruitment is open now, which is great. But Peter mentioned that we'll talk about that later in the Q&A session. But in terms of what we look for is we are looking to bring in open-minded, engaged people who will enjoy working in our dynamic teams. So Nikki mentioned already some of the things that we look for, such as being passionate about science, being able to work at a fast pace, people who are up for a challenge and like taking on new challenges and connections. And when we recruit, we're essentially looking to recruit the best life science graduates that are on the market. So we recruit people from university, but also as well those who have already had a career. So we've just got a little chart here that shows that generally when we've looked over who we've brought in over the past 5 years, the split by degree has tended to be a third and a third and a third. And we're looking to build teams with diverse people in them from varied backgrounds. If you are thinking about a career as a medical writer, then there are many ways in which you can practice ahead of applying to roles. Thinking about writing skills, if you are choosing your modules at university or thinking about how you present those back for review, choosing ones which are including writing challenges, gain experience of writing outside of university as well. We've seen more and more over the past couple of years that people are involved in societies, newspapers, social media activity. But then it's also worth thinking that medical writing isn't just about writing. There's many other skills that are involved, such as the project management, working as part of teams, and you can gain experience through being part of societies, extracurricular activities, hobbies, jobs, all of those things give you transferable skills. And it's also worth stressing that there's lots of materials available online to help you support in building these experiences. So Peter's side of MedComms networking, First MedComms jobs, they're basically the encyclopedia of all things on how to get into the MedComms industry. So it's worth doing your research when thinking about what route you want to go down. The application process for us is a broad 4-step process, and on average we recruit twice a year. So when recruiting, we'll review CVs and cover letters before progressing to a writing test. The writing test is typically based on a clinical abstract. If you're successful at passing the test, you'll progress to the next step, which is a screening call, video interview, and then we'll also hold in-person assessment centres. Just to go into a bit more detail about the assessment days. So there's a mixture of activities that will happen within the assessment centre, and that's usually made up of a competency-based interview, which would be you with a couple of interviewers from the business. There'd be an on-site writing test, usually linked to a clinical symposium, and that's an opportunity for us to see how you write in different forms. So that task would be different to the one that you would complete ahead of attending an assessment day. When we do the group task, we're looking to get a sense of how you work with others, so your engagement and participation. And then there's ample opportunity throughout the day to network with alumni, so people that have been through the training programme, but also chatting to more senior people within the business so that you can get a sense of what you'll be doing in the role, what the company culture is like, to help answer any questions that you might have. And it's worth remembering that when you are applying and interviewing for jobs, it is a two-way process. So you want to get out of that experience as much as possible to help you form whether you feel that this kind of fast-track programme would be right for you, and vice versa. So how to find out more? We recently revamped our website, so Allegro has its own dedicated website now within the Inizio page that has lots of information on the Allegro Right programme as well as the others. There's testimonials, there's infographics, so that's a really good starting point to find out more about the programme. And in terms of keeping in touch, we're active on our LinkedIn page. We keep the website up to date, and then we also have an inquiries email, which comes through to myself and Matt, who are the dedicated recruiters for Allegro, which is allegro.inquiries@inizio.health. So yeah, so that's our slides.
We'll take these down, Peter, and then we can go to some questions.
Excellent, thanks guys. Okay, that was very comprehensive. To the audience that are here today, please do use the text boxes to throw some questions into the pot, and we'll use that to inform the discussion. We'll have 10-15 minutes chat, trying to answer any more questions that are coming up. I just thought, I know you talked a bit about it, but can we clarify maybe, because several questions came in quite quickly from the sort of the international group. I know you got particular interest in the UK, and a lot of what you talked about was UK specific. So let's just clarify, outside of the UK, you said the programme is developing in South Africa and Greece, is that right?
Yeah.
But not elsewhere. So the States or whatever doesn't currently have this sort of a programme. That's right, isn't it? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So looking at it slightly, so that's one point that people need to bear in mind. Looking at it slightly differently, we had a couple of questions coming in about people effectively joining from outside of the UK, or I guess on that basis outside South Africa or Greece. Do they need, can they? Presumably no. Can you cope with people on visas and so on? I mean, just give us a little bit of a sense, just very quickly from an international point of view, of who can or can't get involved in this. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, of course. So to apply, you would need to be based in the UK and with a permanent right to work in the UK. So we wouldn't be able to bring people in who are remote in different countries, because a lot of the training is delivered in person. You'd be linked to a UK legal entity and contract. So that's why we need you to have that permanent right to remain and work in order to be progressed.
Same in South Africa and Greece, you need to be living in those countries to apply to the programme.
Okay, and just to cover it off, because we've actually got some questions coming from South Africa. So the process is similar?
Similar. So we have set recruitment times, so set periods of cohorts joining throughout the year. Similar process in the sense of tests and interviews, but we just don't do that in person. Assessment centre, your interviews would be on a virtual, Zoom or Teams platform.
So we will be recruiting in South Africa later on and Greece later on this year.
Okay. So the point is that they can find that information from the website, or they can contact you directly. Okay, and in the let's stick with the UK, which is the main point of this, and let's just talk about it slightly differently. So again, questions were coming in about part-time, remote working, and so on. Again, I know you touched on it, but give us a little bit more of a sense of how practical it is for someone to be working remotely, because you sort of implied that you could. but also a lot of it was in-house in those first 6 weeks. So just gives a little bit more of a sense of what happens in practice. Is that okay?
Yeah, so the first 6 weeks, you need to be able to travel to an office for a lot of the training. So we would usually say for the first 6 weeks, you need to be able to get to one of our offices, whether that's Manchester, Glasgow, London, or Macclesfield. After the 6 weeks of core skills training, we can be more flexible in terms of where you work from. So when you're on rotation in the business, a lot of our teams operate virtually. So there's a bit more kind of, it's easy for you to work from home at that point. But yeah, the first 6 weeks, you need to be able to get to one of the offices.
Okay, so but to state an obvious point, you've got offices in several parts of the country, so that may not be as difficult as it sounds. But also just talk a little bit, perhaps, because people, particularly these days, tend to sort of react as, oh, well, you know, we ought to be able to work remotely. I think there's a very, very strong argument for people coming into a business like MedComms that they do come into an office environment and they understand the reasons for it. So can you talk a bit about that? I mean, really, you do learn a lot by osmosis and stuff like that, don't you? So just talk a little bit about that side of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. A lot of it, you learn a lot from your peers whenever you're coming into MedComms. So it's really important that you're with people who are going through the same things as you at the same time. So there's a number of reasons, really. So the core skills training, it's fast-paced, it's full on, and it helps to have a team around you who are all going through the same thing. You're all in the same boat, essentially, which is why we kind of say for those 6 weeks, try and be in the office together. I also think it's really important for networking. So we have got our offices, they're full now, and we're in Manchester today. There are no spare desks, it's full.
Right.
Same with London, it's full. So it's great. And in MedComms, you can hear conversations, you'll hear things in the office and think, well, that sounds interesting. I've not come across that before. Have a conversation with somebody, and you never know where it might lead to. There's so many examples in the past that I could bring up where someone's heard something and said, oh, I've actually done something in that area in the past, and then they've joined the team and been of use. So opportunities come your way. It's really important to network and understand and meet people. MedComms, when you're a medical writer, you might have this idea that you're sat writing. Writing actually is what, 30, 40%, 50% of the job. It depends on
exactly, yeah.
Most of the time you're talking to people, you're building meetings for clients. It's a real collaborative team environment, and the more you get to know people, the easier it is to do the job. So like I said before, networking is huge in what we do during that 6 weeks. We take you to Manchester as a group, we take you to London as a group. We travel all the time because it's vital that you're actually seen and you see other people as well.
Yeah, I think that's a hugely important point there. And having said which, as the importance of coming into the office, I don't think can be overstated. I know that different people are doing different things. It's obviously a little bit flexible, but it really is important. But also it's worth making the point that it then becomes a very flexible career opportunity ahead of you. You know, once you've got that experience under your belt, now there are lots of people working in all sorts of remote locations on very flexible basis. And as a medical writer, you get trained to do something that is really quite, it's something that you can really travel with effectively, can't you? And there are people working remotely all over the place.
Exactly. It's one of the best jobs in the world to fit around your life. I mean, there are periods where it's extremely busy. There's no two ways about it. But there are periods where you're able to work it around your life, your family, whatever you need to do. So once you kind of, I think after the first year, I always say to people when they join, the first year, it's really important to be in the office as much as possible, get involved in as many different opportunities as possible. But once you kind of learn the basics and you feel comfortable, it becomes much more that you can work from home, you can work around other things as you kind of get more experienced.
Just some of the practicalities, and maybe Katie, I can ask you. Again, there's a number of questions falling over themselves here. In terms of people applying, I mean, your cohort that you're bringing in, you've got a sort of a time scale, haven't you? So one question that came in from a PhD student, at what point do I apply? I mean, presumably you say, I won't put words in your mouth, but they've got to work around some different timescales there, haven't they?
Yeah, so you can get in touch with us at any point throughout the year, and we'll be able to give a timeline of, for the next intake, we're recruiting, or we'll open up recruitment in May, we'll close in June, assessment days June to start at a certain start date. So we'll have those set periods, and then we keep if you've registered your interest, we will keep your details on file to let you know when that job is next live. So you can get in touch at any point throughout the year, but typically we would have an August, September start date, and then a start date in January. And we might take about 3 months recruiting, preparing and planning for that.
Okay, so let's assume there's a couple, I know, again, a bit of flexibility, but let's say a couple of cohorts and they can work around that a little bit. Someone said, how long does it take for me to find out if I'm being considered and things like that? I mean, just again, give us a flavor. If I send an email today and say, I'd like to come in, what's the process and how, frankly, are you just going, if you don't hear from me, Peter, we're not interested in you? Or how much do you manage that process?
No.
Do you see what I mean?
So between myself and Matt, we will review everybody's profile and everybody will get updated, whether that's progressing to the next step or whether it's a decline, and the reasons for that. And would aim to do that, within 2 weeks of you recruiting. So it's going to get really busy, for example, now that we're recruiting over this next month, but it might not be, a 24-hour turnaround just due to the volume of applications that we get. But yeah, everybody will be notified. And we have that cut-off of application date to give us enough time for people to have screening call, writing tests, and prepare if they are invited for that assessment day.
And as they go through the process, I mean, again, I'm trying to put words in your mouth, but there's quite a lot. Well, in my position, you get quite a lot of cynicism coming back. Yeah, I've applied, but nobody talks to me, or I've done the writing test and nobody talks to me. I don't know whether it's. Just tell us a little bit about how you guys manage it, because I think you manage it quite well, but I want to let you tell us.
So when you've done a writing test, you'll find out within a week. So if you're successful, that would mean progressing to the next stage. If you've not passed the writing test, we'd always put a few sentences of what you could improve, what you let you down on. Similarly for the assessment centre, so we normally have up to a 3-day turnaround. 3 days usually the longest it would ever take to get back to everybody who'd attended. And if for whatever reason you're unsuccessful, you have the opportunity to have a 30-minute call with one of the assessors that will talk through each of the individual elements to say what went well, what could you build on for future applications. Really, so even if you're not getting a job at the end of it, you're coming away with constructive feedback and areas on improve. Yeah.
And importantly, you're just not left hanging, not knowing what the heck's going on, which in fairness is a criticism we get quite a lot in our business. Just give us a few, I mean, again, this don't go too far with this maybe, but people applying to you, Katie, I mean, what are the obvious things they get wrong? I mean, people are asking specific questions like 1-page CV, 2-page. I'm a little bit more interested in is the sort of, what I say to people is attention to detail is really important. So, think about the email that you're sending in. Is it spelled correctly? Is it just the right person? Are they doing what you've asked them to do? And a lot of people, as I understand it, fall over at those early stages because they just send a standard CV because they see something on LinkedIn or something, they go bang, 10 minutes later, you've got something and you go, you haven't thought about this, have you? So just tell us maybe a little bit about the sort of what you see at your end, a little bit of the sort of the bad practice, if you like. What can people do better to try and get them through that?
Probably just echoing all of those things you said there. So, if we've asked for a cover letter, is it got the right company on there? Has it got, capital letters in the correct places? Has it got the relevant information? So you'd be surprised at the amount of times we have a CV and they've got a science degree, but we don't know the year or where or what grade. There's no context around why they want to be a writer versus researching or other roles. So it's more about the effort and attention of tailoring the application for the role you're applying to. And then other things come in as a factor, maybe things like, have you got any transferable skills through work experience, hobbies, volunteering? I think it is so fiercely competitive now that we look for the science as a base level, but it's more about the extra things that are on top of that as well.
Just can you give us some sort of sense? Again, there's questions coming about the numbers. We're saying it's very competitive to get in. What does that really mean? I mean, and how many people are you trying to take in within one cohort, say?
Yeah, so on average, our cohorts are around 30. It fluctuates depending on business need and how many hires we bring in, but I'd say that's typically the average that we would have. So, for example, at the assessment centre days, we look to see about 60 people. And that just works its way back from, we'll send tests out. There's probably a 50% pass rate on the test. So then we'll invite the people that have passed those tests and invite them to the assessment day. So, yeah, it is, I would say, competitive, particularly at that first stage, CV review, cover letter screen. But once you're through past that, it really is based on, was your writing test strong enough to invite you to the other elements?
So, but you're literally starting with hundreds of people applying for these jobs, sort of thing. So it's worth people understanding that. And the important point in there is that they can increase their chances of getting through this if they pay attention and they do as you ask, etc. And I say when I'm asked, and I've never been challenged on this, but I think it's a fair thing to say, you guys, people in MedComms, are not typically setting traps for people. They're not trying to be clever. If you're asked to write a writing test, say it's a 500 words for a nursing audience, don't write 2,000 words to show how clever you are and things like that. But it should be in the brief. And you're probably not asking somebody to spend a week or so of hard labor to do that writing test. But so they, read the brief, understand the brief. If there's any problems, can they come back to you and ask a question? I mean, a bit of clarification sometimes might be helpful, might not be a bad thing. But basically you're being told what to do. So read the thing and come back in the way that you've been asked. And actually, you can solve a lot of the problems. And on that point, I mean, you made a point that you've looked at the qualifications: a third BSc, a third MSc, a third PhD. And one of the things that seems to come through is everyone in MedComms is going these days. Anybody can join. Okay, we're looking for the right sort of life science background and so on. But there is some truth in the matter that a postgraduate degree, an MSc or something, can help a lot, can't it? And sometimes it just gives you that little bit more life skills, transferable skills, a little bit more maturity, a little bit of that sort of thing. There's nothing stopping a BSc straight out of university, but a little bit of experience can help. Would you agree with that or not?
It's the life skill bit that you talked about there that's really important. So as I said before, MedComms, yes, it's writing. You have to understand the science. But it's teamwork, it's collaboration, it's dealing with different types of people. And you can have a BSc and have worked in a cafe or a pub or a bar or something and have to deal with all sorts of people. That to us is vital information. So that needs to go in your cover letter. So it's things like that we're looking for. Have you been in situations where you kind of had to manage different types of people? And you learn that when you're doing a master's or a PhD as part of your academic career, but you may have a BSc and have done volunteering or, I don't know, taught to scale swimming or something. That is vital for us to help us see the sort of person that you are. So it's just as important. Someone's actually asked a question. Just wanted to put one question out. Someone was asking about whether they can choose which office they're based in if they're successful. Yes, it's entirely up to you where you're based. Let's just make that clear. We're not going to ask you to move anywhere. If you're successful and you want to work in Glasgow, Manchester, wherever it is, you can work from the office closest to you. That's fine.
Okay. Just out of interest, as a general point, just maybe to finish on, because we're running out of time, have you got any thoughts on if someone's coming from an academic background and they're coming into a commercial environment? I mean, it is a step change, isn't it? What have you got a few words of sort of, what to expect, what you might be surprised about, what not to worry about, sort of thing? Nikki, have you got some experience from the people who come in?
What we found is that people who come from a very strong background, so we might have postdocs that have postdoc for 5, 6, 7 years, and then you come into this MedComms environment and it's like a whole other ball game. Quite often what we'll do is we'll hook you up with someone who was in a similar situation to you, so someone in the business who was also postdoc for a while, and you can have a chat about how they found the switch to the different. I think the biggest thing is that you're obviously dealing with data that's not your data. You're dealing with people, multiple authors, healthcare professionals that have got thoughts on how the data should be discussed or communicated. It just takes a bit of time to get your head around things. Timelines are different. You'll quite often find that academics are used to working ridiculous hours, and we'll say, oh, you can finish at 5 o'clock. It's like, oh, okay then. So it depends on people's individual situations and circumstances, but we've got a lot of people in the business who have very successfully transferred from academia to MedComms. I think sometimes it just takes a bit of time to readjust. But it is different for everybody that comes in. really. But we can,
Okay.
we've got a whole group of people who've been in a similar situation, so we can hook you up to chat to somebody.
Yeah. I smiled slightly when you said, "Oh, you can go home at 5 o'clock." I mean, again, one of the things I would always say is be a little bit careful with that, because we are in a commercial business and it's an agency business. And I don't know if the deadline for abstracts for conference is midnight tonight, then frankly, it's all hands to deck. We've got to get the abstracts in. So I think it's not a bad life-work balance, and all, but people have to sort of understand the commercial realities of what they're getting into. Is that a fair point?
Yeah, exactly. I think I alluded to it when I was presenting, that sometimes it's extremely busy and sometimes it tends to kind of go up and down and up and down. And sometimes we can plan for it. We know when Congress deadlines are going to be, and you can expect that it work until, I mean, we sometimes order pizzas in at 9, 10 o'clock at night to keep everyone going. It depends. But then you'll have a week where you might actually have a bit of free time. But usually we can kind of plan for it, and in the odd day, yeah, something happens and you have to just all hands on deck. But I think overall it is a really good work-life balance across the course of a year. It's teamwork, isn't it? You wouldn't ever leave somebody sat there doing something by themselves. Everyone just mucks in, which is what's lovely about the job.
Yeah, but again, there's a point worth emphasizing in there, particularly if you're coming out of academia. There is this team environment. I know you talked a lot about it, but that is really what it's about. So you're not sitting at a desk trying to figure something out on your own. That's quite the opposite of the situation. Let's wrap up there, because we have run out of time and we should draw the recording to a halt. So thank you very much. It's been interesting to hear about the latest developments with the Allegro program and so on, specifically for the writers. Anybody watching this, they've got some signposts there to go and look at the website and so on, but I know you two are very happy to hear via LinkedIn is the easy way. So please do reach out, everybody. If anybody's interested in what I'm doing, medcommsnetworking.com, or specifically first medcommsjob.com, if you're interested in a new job in MedComms. But I'm going to close this recording down for the moment. Anybody sitting watching us at the moment, we're here for another 10 minutes or so. But the recording, thank you very much. A little wave and we'll stop the recording. Bye-bye.